Hello everyone, my name is Jameson Chase Young. This is Coins and History. In the second half of the video, we'll be talking about the very first DUI, driving under the influence. So please stick around for that. But first, the 1897 New Orleans Morgan silver dollar. Really amazing silver dollar, really amazing time period, really amazing city. This silver dollar is really nice, it represents a really amazing time in American history. Things were changing. It was kind of in between the Wild West and the modern times. It was the Industrial Revolution when this Morgan silver dollar came out, and it was it's a great coin that represents a very great time. And I love these Morgan silver dollars. I say that in almost every video I do of them. Sometimes I'll be doing videos of other coins, and I'll talk about how much I love the Morgan silver dollar. So I obviously like these Morgan silver dollars. They were designed by George T. Morgan, and then the years they minted them were 1878 to 1904, and again in 1921. Their composition is 90% silver, 10% copper. Their weight is 26.73 grams. The diameter is 38.1 millimeters. Their silver content is 0.77344 troy ounces, and their edge is reeded. This one specifically, the New Orleans Mint, they minted 4,004,000 at the New Orleans Mint. At the Philadelphia Mint, they minted 2,820,000, and then at the San Francisco Mint, they minted 5,825,000. But so those are the three mints that minted the Morgan silver dollar in 1897. And it was in 1897 when a young man, well, he was young at the time. He was young in 1897. A young man, 25 years old, named George Smith. He started a club that some of us are in. It's the DUI club, driving under the influence. He got the very first drunk driving charge while driving a motor vehicle. Now, back in the day, they did have certain city ordinances and town regulations about driving your horse carriages drunk, but this was the first driving under the influence charge for a motor vehicle, and it was in September 10th, 1897. And imagine his surprise. I mean, to us, it's like a no-brainer. You just know if you drive drunk, that's illegal. But this was the very first time it ever happened. It'd probably be like, I one time read about people like when fingerprints first came out, and then the judge and the lawyers used their fingerprints to catch them, and that was the first time that had ever happened. And imagine like how surprised those bad guys are. Well, I'm pretty sure George Smith too was very surprised. You should listen, or we'll read over the transcripts. At Marlborough Street Police Court yesterday, George Smith, I'm reading this is the newspaper article. George Smith, age 25, of Portnall Road, Hallow Road, was charged by the police with being drunk when in charge of a motor car, of which he was the licensed driver. Police Constable Russell, 247C, stated that at 1:45 in the morning, he saw Smith in Bond Street in charge of a motor car, a four-wheel electric cab. Suddenly, the vehicle swerved from one side of the road to the other and ran across the footway into 165 Newboud Street, taking a water pipe and a beating on the window. Thinking that the driver was unable to manage the vehicle, witnesses asked him to get down from the box, and finding that he was drunk, they took him to the Vine Street police station. He then denied being drunk, and the divisional surgeon was sent for, who certified that he was drunk. I was going up an incline and could not have been going 6 miles an hour. The fastest these cars can travel is 8 miles an hour. That's what the prisoner was saying. Mr. Rutston, he said, "You are not charged with driving furiously, but with being drunk." What about that? Then the prisoner said, "I have nothing to say to that. I admit having had 2 or 3 glasses of beer. I am very sorry. It is the first time I have been charged with being drunk in charge of a cab." And then Mr. D. Rutson, I believe, who's one of the police officers, he said, looking at the list of convictions sent by Scotland Yard, "You have been charged with here with being drunk." Then the prisoner says, "Yes, but that was not when in charge of a cab." So Mr. Rutson, the police officer, you motor car drivers ought to be very careful For if anything happens to you, well, the police have a very happy knack of stopping a runaway horse. But to stop a motor is a very different thing. There, you'll be fined $20. So I guess those police really showed him. He obviously did not understand the seriousness, or neither did the police for that matter. You know, he was just driving a taxi cab and he hopped the curb and he ran into a house and broke like a water line. And this was the very first time, you know, anybody had ever drove drunk, or I mean, I'm sure it wasn't the first time anybody had ever drove drunk, but it was the first time anybody ever got charged with it. He got charged like $20-some fine. So imagine that. That's crazy. You know, nowadays DUIs can run you thousands of dollars. And, but yeah, back in 1897, though, I'm sure $20 was a lot more then than it is now. Then the United States, this was 13 years before the United States passed any kind of drunk driving laws. Our first laws didn't come in until New York City, 1910. So we were way behind the times, even though I don't think that they necessarily had laws on the books in England, but it was officers' discretion. Just like it was officers' discretion here in the United States, because breathalyzers, they didn't come out until 1936. So, you know, for the first couple decades of DUIs, it was straight kind of your word versus the police officer's word. And this is a side note. And then a side note on top of that, Mary Ward, she was like a woman scientist. She is the first person to die in a car crash. It was more like a steam-powered engine strapped to a bunch of steel wheels. Now, her death was not drunk driving related. It was just this steam engine attached to wheels, this experimental thing was, you know, she was actually only had a top speed of 4 or 5 miles per hour, but the safety features on it were so horrible. You know, 1869 is when this happened. So there was no safety features. So she fell out and the wheels ran over her and she became the first person to die in a car crash. Now, I guess I just threw that in as a side note because obviously I think a pretty nice sized double-digit percentage of car crash deaths are drunk driving related. So it's a little bit related, kind of like it's a little bit related to the US's first drunk driving charges. But yeah, it was George Smith, a young man, 25 years old back in 1897, September 10th, that was getting the world's very first DUI, driving under the influence charge, when this 1897 New Orleans was coming out. So, you know, very very unique, I guess, history, you could say. Very unique and nice coin. And I hope that you enjoy these videos. I hope you like them. And if you do, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. My name's Jameson Chase Young. This is Coins in History. Thank you.